Married men over 30, what kind of hobbies do you have? Story 1. Bought an off-grid cabin from the late 1800s with a sauna, shed, and 1,000 sqm yard. So everything related to that. This year we painted the entire thing, did a lot of gardening, took up feeding and learning the names of the birds that visit. Next year I'm going to learn which end you hold a hammer in and start upgrading small things. There is a never-ending supply of things someone like me, not handy for, can learn and do. And add to that the appreciation for nature, taking walks, fishing, and so on that we do. I think it will keep me busy for the next 10, 15 years at least. Story 2. My one single consistent hobby is watching movies. I just love watching movies. Edit. Adding this with truly no intent of being malicious or rude, I'm just trying to be proactive. I watch more movies than anyone I know. I've been at the theater multiple times a month, almost every month for over 20 years. I see what's playing at every local theater every week just to see if anything is screening I didn't know about, new or old. My physical collection is massive. I already know every reward program and suggestion that exists. This is one of the very few topics where I can whip out the Ron Swanson, I know more than you, haha. So thanks for trying to be helpful, but I already know. Edit 2. It has been mentioned to me a couple times already, so to clarify something else. I am already a filmmaker, haha. I'm small, unimportant, and indie, but making feature films has been my career for 15 years, and my stuff has made it to a bunch of places all over the world. And yes, my love for film started when I was a kid, which is why I wanted to do this as an adult. As a note, I am also a huge carny that knows selling myself is a huge way to keep paying my mortgage. So if anyone asks me for a film suggestion, of course I'm going to suggest one of my own. Story 3. Working on motorcycles with carburetors, small engines, and tractors. Working on my diesel or family cars. Tinkering around on the farm. Reloading ammunition. Shooting. Working with the farm dogs and dogs in general. Building odds and ends for the farm. I guess you would sum it up with what most would consider redneck things. Story 4. Gardening. I found a specific thing I like to garden, growing hot peppers and cactus. I've also gotten into some small wood, working with converting old pallets into potters. And on occasions, I find something good at Goodwill or free on Facebook Marketplace. I will renovate furniture. Story 5. Hiking, rock climbing, cycling, and games, computer nonsense. Wife hikes, but not hard stuff, so we have a trade-off system where we alternate weekends to each have a solo adventure if desired. Weekdays, we all do our own exercises, hobbies after work, with a scheduled date night midweek. Story 6. Snowboarding. I've been doing it since I was a little boy. It's the best feeling to be outdoors in the mountains and just focusing on what's right in front of you. Closest to a flow state that I can get. Sometimes I go with family, sometimes with friends, and sometimes solo. Story 7, bowmaking, archery, woodworking, playing video games, electronics work, liking around with Arduino, soldiering, playing guitar, sewing, reading. IDK, I do a lot of random, kinda depends on what I'm feeling. I have severe chronic back pain, so sometimes if I'm hurting, I can't do woodworking, so I'll sit next to the wife working on a sewing project, stuff like that. Story 8. I really enjoy driving. Being from rural California, I have access to beautiful mountain roads. Since that isn't always convenient, I have a budget racing simulator in my office, and I play a modded version of Assetto Corsa to fill that void when burning fuel isn't an option. Story 9. I'm not married, but I play in a poker league. I attend a Tuesday night in one venue in nearby town, and I run a Wednesday night in another venue in my town. Gets me out of the house 2 nights a week, get to meet people. Every few months we have a regional tournament in the closest city at the big casino with approx. 100 players. There's a national Scotland final and there's a UK final. Story 10. I've been consistently into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu even before marriage and kids. My wife supports the hobby and we alternate taking care of kids solo while the other goes to their sport. She's into HIIT. My kids are starting to go to Jiu-Jitsu now as well, so that's been a bonding experience / made things easier. Story 11, video games, rhythm games, graphic design, drawing, painting, woodworking and wood carving, astronomy, growing peppers, model kits, hiking, going to art museums, tabletop games, and TCGs. While not strictly a hobby, I also collect a lot of stuff. Antiques, vinyl records, tarot decks, antiquarian books, and old video games, electronics. Repairing, fixing old stuff is part of that too. It may seem like a lot, but I go through phases where I juggle only a couple things at a time. In any given year or season, I only focus on those hobbies, but it keeps things fresh and I'm never really bored. Story 12. I've gotten into D&D lately. A local game shop here has weekly side quest nights where folks pop in, play a 2-3 hour quest, then return to their normal lives. Each quest is entirely self-contained, so it doesn't matter if you make it every week or not. I tend to make it about every other week and have really been enjoying myself. Story 13. I find that I feel anxiety from a lot of hobbies. I feel like I should be doing things that make me money or make me better at making money. I used to really enjoy video games and painting, wasting money on my car to make it look better or go faster. All of it is kind of tainted with bad feels now. Story 14. Duck and dove hunting, fishing, solo, ultra-light camping, often on hunts. Honestly, anything that gets me out and enjoying nature is my jam now. If I was single and didn't have responsibilities, I would absolutely sell my house and try to live off the lad as much as possible. Story 15. Rec hockey once or twice a week in the winter, slow pitch and golf in the summer once a week, a bit of woodworking here and there. Hobby farm is always needing something, coaching soccer, hockey, and the president of my kids' orchestra. I run a poker night a couple times a year. My wife's family do work bees together once a year at each other's house. We do family supper a couple times a month. I play video games, couch co-op, with my kids a couple times a month. I go on a week-long elk hunt every 2 years with my bro and bro-in-law. Man, the list goes on. Life is so much fun if you get involved and get outside and break a sweat. And I'm an overweight man who does have crazy extrovertedness. Story 16. I bake and cook. I was a martial artist for 23 years and played video games and stuff. Not macho, but not domestic at all. Now I make my wife stuff from The Witcher cookbook and Julia Childs and Paul Hollywood, and her friends all want to come over and eat my food. Story 17. Playing music is the primary one, which my daughter tries to join in on with her toy instruments. Quite adorable. But I also do some costuming, teach RPGs, and if we have enough energy, we will break out a good board game or two. I used to do a lot of video games, but that's really slipped off. Often it's just too much mental energy required. Story 18. I'm really getting into customizing Hot Wheels. It's fairly inexpensive and allows the mind to build on Mattel's designs. I'm also into anything outdoors in the woods. I still cut down trees with a double-headed axe, feed the wild animals around the house, and my biggest hobby is doing whatever my wife needs or asks me to do with a smile. Though most of the time, it's a fake smile. Story 19. Golf and maintaining things. Turns out being handy and owning a house is a never-ending process of learning new things that sort of become hobbies. The house lacks curb appeal? Better learn how to landscape and learn about trees, shrubs, and flowers. The mower broke. Better learn how to fix it and my neighbors because I can't afford to pay someone else. We need a new table. I have some wood and screws. Time to make one. In short, breaking or looking bad turned into mini hobbies with gardening/landscaping, mechanical work, and woodworking. I guess the environment sort of dictated the hobby. Story 20. Hydroponics and automation. Nicely combined together. You can enjoy growing plants in very strange way, no soil, roots submerged in water, with great results. It's relatively easy to grow some simple greens like basil or salad, and at the same time, enjoy automating every step of the whole process. Can be done inside. To build whole DIY setup, you can use components from some Home Depot Obi, and it requires a lot of creativity. Of course, you can buy complete fancy systems, but it's much more fun to do it yourself. Story 21. I've got quite a few. I like talking about and listening to music, including going to concerts and festivals. Much easier these days now that I have the resources. I like playing disc golf on the weekends with groups of friends. Very easy to find disc golfers to play with. Most are super chill and will let randos play around. I like playing D&D, but don't currently have a group to play with. I like playing video games, but have not been playing a lot lately. I enjoy working out and recently started doing yoga and loving it. It was a slog to get myself to start working out on a regular schedule, but I'm so glad I did. I enjoy watching and talking about football, even though my team is god-awful. Story 22. I've gotten really into competition shooting and archery. Not the typically go blow steam off at the range, but going to different classes, learning from high-level shooters, and attending different events. It's been absolutely a blast and a great way for me to relax. Story 2341 in January. I keep myself pretty busy. I like to listen to music, so I collect vinyl records. I love movies, so I collect DVDs and Blu-rays. I play lots of video games, vegetable and fruit gardening, cooking, both indoor and outdoor cooking. I do enjoy tinkering with cars, but I don't currently have a project car. Edit. Oh yeah, and reading. How could I forget that one? Story 24. I find myself doing the dishes a lot. I enjoy video games, and I've gotten more into reading. I love Star Wars books in particular. For the longest time, I felt like I should only read books meant for people my age, and those are usually self-help books. The last book I got was in the teen section of the library. It's great, and I'm done caring what society thinks I should be doing. Story 25. I'm a bit of an audiophile, so listening to music on my stereo system is a priority when I happen to have time to listen to it. I tinkered with some electronics as well, but definitely don't have consistent time to really do much of it. I'm definitely in need of an actual hobby that's productive. Story 26. I've had an argument with people who don't think the following are good hobbies, or shouldn't even be considered hobbies. But in my free time, I either play video games or watch movies. It is extremely helpful for me to mentally detach from the real world. My wife and kids go to bed and I'm usually awake another 1-2 HRs, and this is what I do with my free time. Story 27, I play D&D, spend my recharge time playing bass guitar, drums, or dabbling with a piano, and I do a lot of reading, usually about 1 or 2 books a week. Those are usually secondary hobbies though, since my main hobby is spending time with my son, helping him with school, playing video games with him, or exercising with him. Story 28, weightlifting, hiking, painting Warhammer, video games, firearms, writing, playing bass, getting stoned, drinking a beer, building, collecting Lego, reading fiction, YouTube history docs while playing Paradox games, browsing Reddit while I sit on the couch with my kid watching TV. Oh, and a couple years ago I started to birdwatch. Story 29, woodworking. 35 and I started a few years ago. I don't think I'm amazing by any means, but a lot of people really seem to like my creations. It's fun, relaxing. You get a sense of accomplishment once a project is completed, and you get to make cool/useful stuff. I mainly make furniture. It's not exactly a cheap hobby, but if you have the space for a shop, then you can make some cool things for less than you can buy them while being a better quality too. Story 30, taking care of my vehicles. It's like a zen to have the interior always looking so clean and the outside so clean. I also mountain bike, boxing in my garage, play video games at night on weekends when I have time, off-road with my vehicle, wife comes along. Story 31. Don't play a ton of video games anymore, but still make time to play Counter-Strike with some of the same group of guys that I've been playing with since 2005. Also do a lot of music, writing, recording, guitar building. Been learning how to build amplifiers, fixing up old beater cars, indoor hydroponic gardening, cocktail recipes, 3D design and printing, bowling, and my wife and I still try to go to at least a couple concerts a month, but being in bed before 11 takes more and more priority these days. Story 32. Cycling, traditional archery, fly fishing, woodworking, and I also enjoy cooking. I don't sit still very well and always need to be doing something. Wife says I have too many hobbies, and the funny thing is, she doesn't really have any besides reading books. Story 33. If it were just my wife and I, my life wouldn't drastically change from my younger years. Now I have 2 kids, and they limit my hobbies more than anything. I'd say at this point in my life, my main hobby is working out. I built a home gym in our old barn in 2019 before our first child was born. Now I can work out without leaving the house. My kids can come with me and play in the yard while I'm lifting. My wife can do yoga in the space. My dog can come as well. It's really been great to have, especially during COVID. Story 34. I do live action role-playing. It's 1 part escapism for an entire weekend a month, 1 part cardio when you swing foam swords or run from monsters, and a healthy sprinkling of crafting. It's how I started getting into leather crafting and resin mold making. Story 3530s was tough because my hobby was raising my kids and revolved mostly their activities and around interacting with other parents. Now that they are older and I have a little more free time, I've picked up and stopped a few things. It's also been fun to be able to pick some old hobbies and do them with my kids. I've been able to golf a little more often and use it as a chance to hang out with my kids. Gardening is a new one for me, but it has been enjoyable and it's easy because I don't have to go anywhere. Along those same lines, I've also started learning about cooking more, though most of it centers around my smoker and grill. I joined an axe throwing league and do that 1 night a week. I also joined, or I am part of, a local whiskey club that gets together every few weeks or so to share whiskey and hang out. Story 3638M. Married 14 years and been a dad to a daughter for 7. I enjoy playing guitar, riding and working on motorcycles, doing some pretty crappy woodworking projects from time to time, as well as home improvement projects when I'm motivated. I like to include my daughter in as many of my hobbies as I can, but also like to be included in her hobbies when I can, so we can interact and not just be sitting on the couch. I'm also the parent who likes doing things outside more, so if we're doing a trip to the park or ride bikes, or if she just want to go out and toss the frisbee in the backyard, I'm the one she goes to. Story 37. Paintball. Played as a teenager, then fell out of it for 20 years before returning 4 years ago. Found that I was part of a trend, apparently, as lots of former players in our 30s and 40s have been returning in recent years. Plenty of guys who played in the 90s or the 2000s golden age. Check out our paintball and you'll see getting back into it from a long hiatus posts almost daily. The return of so many older players has seen a resurgence in mech play and classic formats like 10-man. If you're one of paintball's lost children, come on home. There is a place for you. Stop telling yourself that you're too old or out of shape. The sport is alive and well. The BPS wars are long over. Paintball came to its senses, and the technology now is amazing. Stuff just works. As a 43-year-old married father, I managed to play about one full Saturday of woodsball a month. It's surprising how much effect one good day of vigorous exertion every few weeks has. Story 38. Turning 30 made me want to try and run a marathon, and now I'm hooked on running, and to a lesser extent, exercise in general. Marathon training takes a lot of time, which can be hard with a 2-year-old at home, but I definitely prioritize it with whatever non-family free time I have. Story 39, gardening, cooking, Legos, reading, video games, stalking the animals in my backyard with trail cams, throwing sharp objects at targets, and a bunch of other pretty nerdy stuff. ADHD means I have about 300 started hobbies that I'll revisit every now and then, and they are all pretty quiet stuff I can do around the house. Love how many plant bros are here. Story 40, billiards is the biggest one. Pool table in the den, league 2 nights a week. Video games is the other, but it's moved from MMOs and time sinks to stuff I can pick up and put down on a whim since we've got an 8-year-old to manage as well. Story 41. Surprised it's not as listed here, but I really like board games. I'm more collecting lately than playing, but I love them. Video games are also big. I have so many of them, but they are so much fun. Playing music and listening to music is also a big-time sink. Add movies, shows, and anime into this. I don't see how people have time to do other things. Great things to mix in and out. Story 42. Stuff with the kids, of course. I wake up an hour and a half before I have to so I can get a good workout in. I was huge in movies and shows, but can't watch them with little ones around. I always wanted to read and finally started 3 years ago. So I read about an hour a day and listened to audiobooks separately an hour a day, driving to and from work. Otherwise, I build stuff for our house, garden boxes, mudroom bench, things like that. Story 43, I lift weights and assemble lots of puzzles. I built a home gym to my exact specs a few years ago, and now I have a card table set up that always has a puzzle on it. In between sets, I'll place or sort some pieces for about 2 minutes, then on to my next set. Helps me slow down my workouts so I reduce injuries, but keeps my brain engaged the whole time. Whenever I need a puzzle break, I'll swap out for a Lego set or something. Story 44. I usually only have an hour or two to myself at night after the kids are asleep, but I do play video games or make website side projects. I'm a web developer by day. I like photography too, but that takes a back seat since I can't really go out like I used to. I also set up a home assistant to mess around with a while back, and that's pretty fun. Story 45, taught myself how to repair electronics, so now I do it as a side hustle plus hobby. I mainly do games consoles. It's fun problem solving, and I have the bonus of making a bit of money from it. Also gym, spontaneous travel, and making things. Me and my wife are both on the same page about not wanting children, so we have a lot of time to dedicate to each other and our hobbies. Story 46. If you've ever seen the show Taskmaster, my wife and I run a version that we invite friends to yearly. We invite pairs, so it could be couples or siblings or friends, etc. We have to send the tasks out and have them film themselves doing it, which is why we need pairs. We've got ad breaks with fake commercials we've made ourselves as well as some other fun bits. It's a ton of work, but the payoff is great for everyone. Story 47. I started a small game development studio with some friends. I attend weekly figure drawing sessions and enjoy creating art. I have a movie season pass, so I watch most movies with my wife. I play video games and am into Magic: The Gathering. I also love to travel and have visited 5 countries this year, 3 of which were new to me. Additionally, I am a big fan of music and frequently attend live concerts. These are my main interests. My wife says I have too many hobbies. I also have no kids, just cats. Story 48, in my 40s. Board, role-playing, and video games. That's been a staple in my life since forever. Occasionally reading, writing, miniature painting, straight razors, and wet shaving. And right now, I'm looking at getting into growing mushrooms for food when we move to the new house. Oh yeah, and cooking sometimes. Sometimes cooking is just making food, but other times it's an exploration of the possibilities within a cuisine or with a certain ingredient. Even chores can become hobbies if you apply your inner nerd. Story 49, I'm 36. Over the last couple years, I find broken down small engine equipment on Marketplace, fix, rebuild, and resell them. I made about $1,200 this past summer doing something I thoroughly enjoyed. I've also had several family members reach out paying me to fix their stuff. Story 50. Watching sports, as an American even got into soccer the last few years, playing and even watching golf and gaming, though I've transitioned to mostly single-player or non-competitive games. Also been getting help finishing my basement. As I'm starting to learn about home improvement DIY, I'm filled with ideas of what I can do around the house. Also recently started reading books again. First, I did it so my daughter can see me reading as a means to inspire her to do the same. And now it's back to something I do as much for myself. I'm hoping that with the increased workspace I'll have that I can get back into writing music as well. Story 51, electronics. I got into KiCad watching a how to make a PCB board series from Hackaday. It's fascinating that I can send a design to JLCPCB and get 5 boards back for $2. I've made custom guitar pedals, small amps, and custom LED boards and such. Super fun and like a hobby for an ADD person. I've now spent thousands on the hobby. I'm sure I'll move on to the next thing any day now. Story 52. Ultra running and woodworking. Basically anything that occupies me for hours and hours and hours, and the kids can't or don't want to join. That was a bit of a joke. My son, who is 12, is into trail running. We're doing a 14-miler in the Grand Canyon on Sat. And anytime I'm in the wood shop, the kids are there to up all my scrap wood by gluing/screwing/cutting/nailing it into all different silly things and then leaving their mess for me. Can't get away from these little bastards. I think they like me. Story 53. I build computers. I got into the hobby because shooting is too expensive and comparatively time-consuming with kids in the house. I've built a gaming PC for my wife and I. I'm slowly teaching my kids how to build computers as well. My plan is for both of them to build their own computer when they turn 10 for their own rooms. I'm in the process of getting parts to build a computer for my TV and changing my gaming PC into a home server of sorts. I'm still on the learning curve, but it is paying off. Few people realize how easy it can be and how much nuance can be found in computers and software. Story 54. Fishing. Not necessarily surfing, but floating in the ocean on a surfboard without a suit onto one. Up the younger ones surfing with a suit, I walk the track 2 hours, then I thrift around the local flea market on Saturdays. The perpetual fixing the house, I guess I need a hobby, thanks. We'll take up concrete. Let me know what handmade products y'all would buy. I need to make a study of the materials I'll need for a small workshop. Out the gate, I need a mixer, mud mixer. If you're on Reddit, sponsor me, and I'll show my roadmap. Story 55. Hiking. Video games. Door dashing. I like driving and don't mind traffic plus money. Amusing myself by annoying my wife and sometimes my kids, yard work, standing in the garage, just looking at my workbench, wondering how in the blue hell I'm going to organize all this. Drinking a beer while staring into the distance with a vague feeling of dread. Reading. Story 56. Mostly the same stuff I had before I got married, bar when I was in my 20s. Video games, books, music, sports, craft cocktails. I used to be way more into movies and TV. That's probably the interest of mine that took the biggest backseat to accommodate marriage and time with my spouse. Some of my hobbies/interests I still pursue on my own, others I share with my SO. We listen to podcasts together, make cocktails together, play co-op games, attempt new crafts and projects, etc. But we each have our own separate interests and allow each other the freedom to enjoy them on our own too. Story 57. These comments are depressing as I truly believe that parents who don't find time for personal hobbies lack motivation to do so. Has little to do with actual obligations. In fairness, though, my wife is as much of a gamer as I am, and while we're expecting our first in February, we're both committed to continuing that hobby among others once the baby is here. I'll never understand the mentality of, I have kids, therefore I can't do anything in life. Story 58. Sometimes I act like I'm pooping and chill on my phone in the bathroom for like 15 minutes. Another favorite is when I get home from work and chill in the driveway for a couple of songs. I like to watch videos of games I don't have time to play around on phone when kid is doing sports. Story 59. I have many. It gets expensive. I love to cook so naturally this has put me on the path to finding the best ingredients, sauces, spices, recipes, and methods from around the world. This led me to fermenting and pickling, which led me to canning. I'm into marksmanship and archery. This led me to reloading match-grade ammo and making my own arrows. The personal touches and customization of your things gives you a sense of pride and accomplishment. I got into woodworking, built my own bar and kids' playset. I make my own picture frames and have learned a lot about lumber framing and technique. I garden. I began a spice garden and try to keep things year-round. I love plants. My yard has various fruit and nut trees. I read. I read about my hobbies and things that make me what people think is smart. I'm very curious. I intend to stay young mentally but gain wisdom. Fitness, body weight, and functional movements. I want to stay fit. My grandfather said after 50, if you aren't using it, it will leave you. I brew mead and beer. I make wine and intend to distill. I collect coins from around the world and love to antique. I seek high-quality biophile-type things that will go in my will. I am fascinated by electricity and magnetism. I dabble in stock in an attempt to make some happy, lucky investments for future hobbies. I watch the migratory birds and try to learn them by song at my feeder. I do the same with trees when I migrate to their area. Stargazing and learning constellations has been fun. I'm a U.S. Marine and have been exposed to all of these things in my career. It has made my life rich with experience and gave me depth in understanding the world around me. Story 60. Cycling and snowboarding. Cycling. I can do multiple times a week with indoor setup and long 3 to 4 hours outdoor rides on the weekend. For snowboarding, I bought an epic pass this year and will probably do 2, 3 guys weekends, which will easily have the pass pay for itself. Kids are 10, 12 now, so my flexibility has increased significantly since when they were very little. Story 61. Woodworking, photography, cars, motorcycles, vinyl records, whiskey, traveling, 3 days printing, cooking, Japanese knives, computer programming, coding, RC cars, drones, building model kits, collecting artifacts and art, video games, shooting, working out, watching sports, organizing, decorating, plants, investing, working away, and probably a ton more things I'm not even thinking about, but these are just things that I've done more recently in the last month or two. Story 62. I'm 50. I like reading, writing, cycling, and cooking. I like parties, and I used to be a barman, so I know how to break the ice with people and whip up tasty cocktails from scratch. But I'm aware that at parties, I'm often surrounded by people who are from a different generation, as much as we get on well. I also like getting tipsy while using virtual reality games and apps, especially social apps where you can converse and share broadcasts/events with others. Story 63. Photography. Camera gear can be expensive if you really get into it, but you can start with your phone or pick up something fairly nice for less than the cost of a pair of skis. Then you can explore the creative process, composition, the art of being there for the sunrise or sunset or portrait at golden hour, the capabilities of whatever camera you have. Now that everything is digital, the exposures are free, feedback is instantaneous, and critique, if you want it, is just a Reddit post away. Story 64. Highland Games. Yeah, I throw heavy things while wearing a kilt. Supportive community. Be as involved as you want. No experience needed. Spend little money or piles of the stuff. I throw with people who were self-described band geeks in HS, as well as people who threw shot put and hammer at the collegiate level. No Scottish heritage required. Story 65. Woodworking, building things, shed, home renovations, etc. Collecting old tools that I swear one day I'll restore. Playing with my son, video games, reading, general interest in learning new things, so I watch a bunch of documentaries. I also do a lot of vehicle maintenance. Story 66. 53-year-old guy here. Married almost 30 years, 4 kids, 4 dogs, 4 cats, and a lizard. It seems like I spend a lot of time cleaning up after pets, but I wouldn't say that's my hobby. I like to smoke meat, particularly pork butt. I smoke it and freeze it. I make enchiladas with it, Asian-style tacos with it, all kinds of stuff. I also build furniture and do stuff around the house. Right now, I'm working on a trim project in the master bath. And I just bought a 1963 Ford pickup. Fixing that up is going to be my long-term project. Story 67. Joined a CrossFit cult gym. Getting into shape comes with casual friends that are a lot more work to make at a normal gym. Led me to a running club, so more free friends. Pickleball is all the rage for a lot of PPL I know, and apparently a great way to meet PPL, but I haven't gotten into it. Otherwise, I keep learning new things as money and time permits. Did scuba and free diving. Currently trying to learn sailing through a local club that teaches in return for help on the boats. Plan to learn either skydiving or piloting next, but both are expensive. Regardless, I like committing to these communities. If you show real interest and time, you usually meet people and get invited in further than whatever class you're paying for would initially suggest. Story 68. Started reading, got more into looking under my hood of my car. Cooking. I'm a full-time meat associate team leader, so I began cooking. Before that, I was a butcher, so I keep my knife skills sharp, pun intended. Video games when I want to sit back and relax. Lastly, listen to music on my vinyl record O-Layer. Story 69. Baking, electronics, Tesla coils, that sort of thing. Work. It's a hobby job because I retired before I was 40. Drawing, anime, BJJ, strongman, and powerlifting training, and being a dick to people on the internet. Although lately I'm trying to be more kind because the world has been hard enough on people lately, and they deserve a little kindness wherever they can get it. I know there's more, but that's the start. Also, I'm debating learning to make furniture from logs because I live in hurricane land and there's a lot of them about. Story 70. I feel like married men over 30 probably have some really interesting hobbies like cooking or DIY projects around the house. It's cool when people take time for things they love outside of work and family. It's important to keep up with hobbies that make you happy, especially when life gets busy. Story 71. My spirituality, I would say, my family after that, movies/music, pickleball. Sounds lame, but my kids got into it with a group of friends and I started going. We have a blast. BBQs, smoking, and I'm a whiskey enthusiast along with a few local friends. We take about it all the time and do tastings, etc. Story 72. We bought a farm 2.5 years ago. It's not much, but it's honest work. On good days, it's incredible. On bad days, it's meh. It's an expensive hobby, and we are still working toward crossing over to having some sort of benefit to partially offset the costs. But we have suffered a number of setbacks and miscalculations. Still working the desk job in the city, but commute is the same, since no longer am I in the teeth of traffic congestion the entire time. Never enough time to spend on it. When I have time, I'm out of money. Unexpectedly had a college-age kid move home to live with us in the little farmhouse right-sized for my wife and I. House renovations went way over budget, and since we did it all ourselves, some things didn't quite turn out professional quality. But we have cows and chickens and a big garden and pecan trees. Sunsets are gorgeous. We can actually see stars. Occasionally deer pass through. I guess that so much went wrong. Both errors on our part and bad luck, and we are content is a good sign. When it gets too hot out or too cold or we run out of money for materials, gaming is my other hobby. Story 73. Jogging and chopping wood every day to blow off some steam. I quit drinking a while ago, so I need a way to channel my frustration. Gardening angrily. Playing TCGs with friends to stay social and to challenge myself. So body and mind taken care of. To my wife and kids, I'm chill all the time. They don't know about my dark side that I need to keep in check by having my own things. Seriously, you all should go run, take a walk if you can't. It's amazing how different the thoughts are after a while. Story 74. Most of my hobbies revolve around family time, and I love it. I love experiences and prioritize finding ways to share in them with my people. When at home, I like to play video games with my kiddos, watch movies, read, ride my motorcycle, and walk my dogs. Story 75, I run ultramarathons, watch rugby, and go to a weekly boot camp class. I make video games, write short stories, and would like to DM tabletop RPGs. Did it a few times and loved it. I buy games on Steam, then ignore them while I go back to the same handful of comfort games. I hike, visit scenic places, and seek out quirky pubs with new beers to drink. I keep unique bottle tops for a collection. I also collect coins. Until a couple of years ago, I grew illegal veg on land that didn't belong to me. So much garlic. That's all I can think of for now, but there's a way more, I'm sure. Story 76 with my wife. Travel. Local, national, international. We try to go together on business trips, taking advantage of one person's ticket and a hotel room comped, and the other works from the hotel and then spend free time roaming. Lots of weekend runs, 1 week runs, and longer. We are happy to find cheap flights out of country, grab Airbnb or equivalent, and see a new nation. Food and wine, pretty much as described. Music festivals. We are now of an age where the super hot bands of our youth are playing daytime festivals. So we are once again dancing away, but in bed before midnight. Don't judge. Backpacking and camping. Parallel. Scuba for me, snorkeling for her. We will even do some live aboard boats that have accommodations for the accompanying snorkeler. Story 77. I haven't seen anyone put down volleyball yet, but more specifically, sand volleyball is a great and easy sport to get into. There tends to be a lot of pickup groups or events, and as long as you have a sand court nearby, you can always walk, drive over, and see if anyone will let you join. There tends to meetup apps that have beginner player days as well. Great thing about sand volleyball is that you don't actually need anything to start but a volleyball. And if you join a group most times, someone else will have one. Story 78. I have about 15 hobbies that I am mediocre at best. But the main ones I'm trying to stick with now are board games. I still play video games, D&D, and I'm learning to play the banjo. Very early stages of that last one, but I am making progress better than when I tried to learn guitar as a teenager. My wife and I have a few friends, 5 of us total, that we do escape rooms with about once a month. That one is a cool couple-style hobby that we have. Plus, our kids get along really well. So after we finish the room, we typically hang out for the afternoon with everyone. Very loud, but very good to have a nice couple's hobby to look forward to. Story 79. During the day, I spend the time with my family playing games and watching TV. I teach them how to do chores properly and how to raise chickens. We're building one of our first gardens right now to prepare for next spring and hopefully be able to sustainably grow most of the veggies we want. Once they go to bed, it's either me and the wife time where we have actual conversations about things without kids interrupting LOL. Or watch shows, movies. She likes scary movies, and I don't, so when she wants to watch that, I dive into my hobbies. Video games, HO-scale slot car racing, internet racing league where we compare times, 3 days printing, working on my cars, researching aquaponics, and designing plans for a pond garden setup. I love disc golf and saw this posted already, but it's great to take the whole family out to play, or even better with just the boys. You just have to find something you like, spending your time doing, and then make time to do it. Story 80. I run, bike, mostly commuting and transport. but I've convinced myself I need a minimum of 3 bikes for that purpose, have 4 right now. I do home projects, read, and I cook, grill, smoke, bake, I'll do anything. However, I do most of these things alone and have very few real friends. So that's not great, but I got into running because of the solitary nature, and I'm a solitary guy. Story 81. Dirt biking, can-am riding, mechanic work, 3 days printing, home renovations, servers and networking, drones, RC crawlers, kayaking, traveling, camping, gaming, drinking, ham radio, indoor gardening, hiking, CNC woodworking, construction, cooking, watches, reef aquariums, shooting guns, and using my brain to absorb every bit of YouTube technical anything. These are just some of the things I regularly rotate through bouts of hyperfixation that keep me entertained. Some of these need constant attention, and some I put down and pick up every few weeks. Story 82. My hobby bandwidth has deteriorated in my 30s, but that's probably more having to do with my time restraints with 2 littles. But I swim 3-4x a week, I love photography, and I'm trying to collect all of the moons in Super Mario Odyssey. This post makes me realize I'm behind on life LOL. Story 83. Learning about everyday life things is an underrated hobby. Learning about music theory changes how you listen and react to music. Learning about cinematography changes how you perceive movies. Learning about city planning helps you understand why some things are the way they are around you. The list can go on, but basically the more curious you are, the less bored you will be. Story 84. I got into Hot Wheels. I loved them as a child, and while growing up, if I ever saw a car that I liked, I would just buy it. They're just $1, and they make me smile. I just kept doing that since it's cheap and my kids got into them. I've gotten to where I buy more than what I want or like simply because I teach elementary-aged kids. They know I've always got a car in my pocket. I bond with the students, trade with them, and give them away to kids for rewards or gifts. Any other hobby takes too much time and money for me. I don't make a lot, and I don't have a lot of free time between my family and my job. Story 85. Reading, lifting, and cooking. Reading to take a break in different worlds, big on fantasy and sci-fi. I do both physical books and audiobooks when I'm cleaning or driving. Lifting for my health and longevity for me and my family. I typically have to get up early to fit it in, but the early morning is secretly amazing once you get past the first few days of getting up early. I also incorporate daily stretching with my kids and cardio. Cooking is functional, and I always assumed I couldn't cook growing up for whatever reason. Now I have my kids cook with me. Once in a while I'll game, but it doesn't do much for me anymore. It's better to play games you can pause with kids, but reading largely took its place for me. Story 86. Married men over 30 often enjoy hobbies that offer a balance between relaxation and personal growth. Common hobbies include fitness activities like running or weightlifting, creative outlets such as woodworking or photography, and intellectual pursuits like reading or learning new skills. Many also enjoy activities that allow for quality time with family, like cooking, gardening, or board games. It's about finding things that help unwind, challenge the mind, or build connections. Story 87. When I was married and spending time as dad, I was going to school, working full-time, and trying to keep up with being a family. I would basically only have time and energy for video games to de-stress and escape before the next day. Once my wife had her affair, I moved out and have embraced music again, my passion before I got married and had kids. I don't see my kids much anymore, but I've reconnected with writing music and playing shows, with the added benefit of having an established career. Story 88. Best hobby is hanging out with our one-yo baby. Being a dad is the most fulfilling and challenging thing ever. Other than that, I have a lot of hobbies. Cooking, gardening, playing guitar, reading, sport shooting, building things and tinkering in the garage, working on my car and motorcycle, drawing and sketching. There are so many things to do and learn in this world. If you suck at something, just keep doing it and pretty soon you won't suck at it anymore. Story 89. I was a skydiving instructor until I turned 40. Once I had kids, I can't give the weekends up anymore. Cynically, now my hobbies include driving my kids to their various activities. But more seriously, teaching the kids to ride bikes before their 4th birthday was tremendously fun. Having them on ice skates before they were 5 was memorable. Watching the girl play hockey and grow into an all-star goalie is outstanding. But I get the feeling that's not really what you're asking. Now my hobbies are DIY home repair, DIY home improvement. I have a large number of various projects. WLED strip lighting on the kids' bunk beds, then the under-cabinet lighting, then the stairs. It never ends. While signing the kids up for Crunch Labs Maker Boxer, I signed myself up for their Hack Pack, which is fun. I get to play along and show the kids more interesting things to make. So far, 4 robots with various abilities. 3D printing, woodworking. I bought 2 cutting board kits from Rockler, had the older kid make a cutting board, then made a fancier one myself. DIY home solar. When we added solar PV to the house, I had contractors do the roof install, then I did much of the electrical work myself. I'm not an electrician, but it is legal to do homeowner electrical where I live, and the work was properly permitted and inspected.